It's 5 past. We'll make a start and hopefully others can join. First item on the agenda, then I'll pass over to the chair to continue, is the election of the committee chair, please.
Can I propose that Councillor Keddy as chairman?
I'll second that.
And the 3 of you are in favour of that, obviously. Okay, thank you. Over to Councillor Keddy then.
Good evening. Apologies for absence.
None presented, Chair.
And election of a vice chair.
I propose John Haddy.
I can second that.
Okay.
Congratulations, John.
Declarations of interests.
None. From me, anyway.
No.
For me.
No. Very good. Minutes of the last meeting. I've just picked up on one thing, Gareth, on the minutes of the last meeting. The AMC 1121C. I thought that when we said about the where is it? Purchase BT Ultrafast Enhanced 2, we put providing there is no additional cost to what we're paying now.
That's correct, yeah.
It's just that wasn't part of the minutes.
Yeah, it's cheaper than you quoted. It's £40, and then we've got the VoIP, which we'll add to our we will come in.
So that makes it cheaper.
Yeah.
Brilliant. As long as we save money, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Can I suggest that we don't use Welsh-only descriptions for documents? Pwyllgor, Rheoli, Asedau is correct, but it's the minutes of the asset manager.
Are you still having trouble?
The two need to go together.
Right, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, cheers.
Oh, okay, John, yeah, I understand.
He's still working on it.
Okay.
If he wanted to be chair, Mel, it's too late. Anything else from the minutes arising from anybody else?
No.
I propose we accept them as a true record.
Great.
Yeah, I'll second it.
With that amendment that you've already raised.
Excellent. Town Clerk reports. Actually, Gareth, on this one, because this is quite a big one, can we leave this until the end, just in case we run out of time?
You could do, but I don't think it's going to be as big as in view of
a big list, that's all.
If I may just explain, obviously, thanks to Councillor Keddy, you will have had the roof survey. Subsequent to that, I sent it to Rob Chambers with Chambers Conservation.
Yeah.
He's out over the weekend, and I'll just share some pictures he sent. Hopefully you can see them. As you can see, that's where the panel came out. So obviously it's hidden quite a lot for 12 months really, when the hole's not been moved. And equally beyond the lighting box, there's extra down. So you can see the water coming in from there.
I think all I'm hearing is gobbledygook, guys, honestly.
Well, if people can tell, otherwise. So I'll go back.
Can I just mention that that's what we did raise this as a point when we inspected the town hall in December of last year as a leak.
It's not here though. That's the one further over.
Can I just say, if we mute, if we don't need to speak, then I think it will be clearer.
Yeah,
that's correct.
Anyway, obviously the survey, he's been up in the roof space. You can see the water damage tracking on that beam. You can see it here. And then his conclusion is that there are works needed, which he had identified in 18 in some extent, but it looks as if they've got worse. So obviously the flashing round the bell tower, and where we had the works done last year here, that point there, where they attach again, and similarly this lead work and all the loose slates there. Now, his simple statement was this is going to be works very similar to the amount that we undertook on the western roofs. So that was £37,000, if you recall. So I think the debate on the asset action plan, really, I'll stop sharing that, is a bit academic, because the priority will have to be the roof, really. So that would take, I mean, we were talking about a budget of, I'll just remind myself, this year of, we have a 48,000 for all assets and a 20,000 reserve, and I initially got £15,000 in for the roof repair, but obviously it's going to be at least double, if not 3 times that, because not only now we've got to repair the roof, we'd have to repair the ceiling underneath. He's confident enough that this not affected the timbers, which was another worry of his. But I think realistically, we can park this plan, because all the aspects below, really, item 5 will have to, unless they're contracted like the Christmas lights, will have to be put into next financial year, because the priority obviously will have to be getting this roof done now in the summer months. So if that's the position we're in, really. You will have noticed, hopefully, that we will be enhancing our asset reserve a bit as well, because I've done a report to the council on that, and our general reserve, because we've also got to be careful, bearing in mind the amount of other repairs that are scheduled, which will now have to be deferred again. We're going to have to make sure we've got sufficient resources going forward to carry out those other repairs. So circumstances make this priority, really, and that's what I would suggest we need to discuss tonight, that we go ahead and commission, ask Rob Chambers again, who's done the previous work, to specify so that we can go out to tender as soon as possible.
Okay. Melvyn?
Have we? Is anyone else in the frame to be doing this rather than the same people as did it last time? I mean, is it possible to get someone? I guess that's why we're going to go out to tender.
Well, we will have to go out to tender, because it'll be above £25,000. So financial regs allow that. If you recall, the works done in 2018 were done by Grosvenor from Kinmel Bay.
Oh,
and then the works done 19 were done by the local contractor, with a chap, a roofing contractor. So we have, that was 8,000, but it's a much smaller job. Whereas we're back to a bigger job again, lots of lead work, and the bell tower in particular is a very complex structure, and I'm sure Councillor Keddy will tell you, having been up there.
Mm-hmm. John?
There is provision within our financial regulations, or could you describe this as an emergency repair? Because what we don't really want is too much time spent with procedure. It really needs to move swiftly into repair. So there is scope for suspending standing orders if necessary, if it's going to create an unnecessary delay. What's your advice on that, Clerk?
Well, that's why once I saw, again, thanks to Councillor Keddy, once I saw all the roof, I'd seen the bell tower, I checked on the survey, so that's why I've asked Rob, who came out immediately last week, viewed the footage, came out last Friday, done as a report by today. So I would suggest, yes, that the priority is to, if you're content, to agree to appoint Rob again to draw up a specification so we can go out and get quotations or tenders as a matter of urgency so we can start the work before we move into the winter months.
There is that. The one thing I did pick up on, you said that he pointed out a part where the other repairs were carried out. Isn't that under guarantee?
That would be, but it's next to that bit. It's the they did the top flashing, and above that sort of it's the quarter panel side now. It's gone below that. Certainly, obviously, if there is work that needs to be done, I'm sure he can highlight that if we can ask them back to make good. But it's just that the like he said, we could do some repairs for the cherry picker, but it's going to be a patching job again with no longevity. So I think we're just going to bite the bullet and get as much as we can done with the scaffolding up there.
Yeah.
Were we happy with Grosvenor, who did it
Yes.
before? Because
Yeah.
I mean, I know our local guy didn't want to do it, did he? And then somebody else was too hideously expensive or something.
Yeah.
And Grosvenor came in at the best balance, didn't they, before?
Yeah, well, Grosvenor did the work above the changing room, and clearly there's been no leak since.
Okay. I mean, the other thing is,
if you look at the videos, you can see they've widened that channel. It's a much wider channel. You can see the whole slopes on one side, a lot of new lead around there, and that has certainly been good. I mean, I can't guarantee it'll be Grosvenor again, but a few comes in. But I think, as I said, I'd like to get this out to tender within weeks rather than.
I mean, I think it's important to get it done quickly because also it's going to affect the income for the town hall, because if people can't use the balcony because it leaks and there's no chairs in there, then it's going to affect their income. So, yeah.
Sorry, I was muted. Sorry, John. Yes.
Realistically, in response to that, the way the Welsh Assembly government are speaking, it's unlikely that the full use of the theatre capacity of the town hall is going to be likely this year. But we need to protect our structure urgently. So I don't think it's going to be a problem, Charles, from that point of view, because I can't see there being an economic return to the use of the town hall this side of Christmas, although I'd like to be proved wrong on that. But a much more urgent task is to fix it, because it's not something that's just occurred recently. It's something that's been dragging on for a bit, as evidenced by the damage. So now's the time to get it fixed. Now's the time to act expeditiously, I think.
Quite right. So would somebody propose that Gareth goes out to tender for it?
I'll propose that.
Thank you.
Well, could you propose that we use
Rob Chambers.
Chambers Conservation to draw up a specification and manage the process to go out to tender?
Yeah.
Super. Yeah. Sorry.
That's included in that proposition.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Just one little query. Although we've abandoned the rest of the things as being out with our capability to fund, there was one thing I noticed on 18 and 19 of your thing, which was to do with the town hall non-chime at night, and 19, the automatic winder. Well, the automatic winder's gone a little bit by the board, but the town hall muffler, we agreed that on the basis that it was no advantage to us at all. But it was all to be paid for by the Royal Hotel development. That's been on hold, of course, because of course they've been on hold. And I thought that the town hall winder, so that they were going to fund that in full, but they may or may not have made a contribution to the winder. That's not how it appears in your list.
At the moment, obviously, they were happy to consider it, but then, of course, everything changed and work has gone, hasn't gone to a halt because we know some work has happened. But obviously we have a commitment to work with them, and we were hoping that they would make a contribution not only to the silencing the bell, but while we were there to put the electrics in and other stuff to pick up quite a bit of the costs for us to put an auto winder in. So it's still something I think we need to consider going forward, just to bring everything up to standard, really. But I mean, this won't be forgotten. What I'll do is I'll reprioritise it, pushing everything back down. And there'll be things in there like the Christmas lights, which are contracted, the winter planting, which is contracted. So I'll reissue it, and then we can consider it, you know, when we know where we are with the tenders and everything. You know, it might come in quite cheap, we don't know, and they might allow us to do some more. But it'll be reworked in light of this decision tonight, and then we'll bring it back. So that's
okay.
Fine.
Okay. So we could do with going through this list, because in your report you do mention that it's been hanging around for 10 years or so, some of these items, and nothing's been done about them. So it would be nice.
Yeah, obviously the key one, and I think it's pertinent to the debate really, because we've not been in the town hall obviously as much as we could, and that light was obviously hiding millions of problems underneath. And it wasn't until we actually saw the water in the LED after that particularly bad stormy day. But, you know, that could have caused an electrical fault. So the one that's hanging around, which is a big item, big ticket item, is an fire alarm system. You know, at the moment we have a break glass, which is fine if you've got open in the building. I like that example. If that had caught fire, the whole, you know, I know it's insured and everything, but the building would have been well alight before any sense of an alarm would have been seen. You know, you'd have to see people seeing flames going out the windows. Whereas if we had a smoke detecting, more modern alarm system, you know, it would have alerted faster. So I think that's something again, but you know, needs must at the moment. We you know, the roof is also 10 years. That was highlighted as a long-term priority, but now obviously bit by bit it's becoming an immediate priority. Yeah. So that's one really, and then the other is what we're going to do what we need to do with the morgue and others, but I think that, you know, that's a long-term aspiration now. We'll just have to wait. Although we have got somebody who may want to take over the morgue, and we may be able to, now we've got the roof, as you see from the video footage, it's quite good now, the roof of the morgue, been patched up quite nicely. I mean, if people are willing to go in and do some work to the morgue, you know, capitalise that and let them have a couple of months rent free, that's one way. And people, well, an ex-councillor that we all know was looking at a coffee roasting company, so he may be willing to say, well, let's allow that as long as they do some of the work, capitalise that, and then after a certain period of time charge the rent. So there are other ways of moving that forward.
Mr. Mile, Councillor Mile.
Right. Is this fire alarm an aspiration of ours, or is it a condition of the new fire insurance policy?
At the moment, every time we have a fire inspection, they sort of roll their eyes and say, "Oh, you know, this is all you've got." It was in the original costings as work that required to be done in the long term. When we took over the building, it was £100,000 worth of work that the county had identified needed doing. Obviously, we're up to standard with the codes, the building codes or building regs that were in place when they installed that alarm. That's how we can get away with it. But it you know, like I said, the circumstances with that electrics, if that had called us short, you know, we haven't had people in the building for a long time. As I say, the fire, you know, there's a chance with a proper alarm system with smoke detectors, we could have minimised damage, whereas it could have gone right through the building before we did identify it. So I think long term, it is something that we should be aspiring to do.
Councillor Haddy.
Short term, we meet the specifications required of the building code. So there's no requirement upon us to actually install an up-to-date one, although if we had the money, it would be wise to do so. It won't prevent us from using the hall. Most of these things are not in retrospective. You don't have to run to the current regs, just the regs at the time of installation.
Yeah, I quite agree, John. The only time we would have to bring it up to standards is if we did any alterations to it. So if we put smoke detectors in the roof, if they formed part of the fire security system, then we would have to upgrade the system. But not replace it, because, as I was chatting to Mel about, they used pyro cables in there, which you can burn the building down, those cables will still be standing there. It's the best system ever. It's better than any new system of wiring. So a hybrid system, utilising the old cabling, would be a much cheaper option than £30,000.
Okay. As I said, obviously it's all a bit academic at the moment, but it'll be there for future years. And but it's important that we look at this towards the end of the year to plan with to make sure there's adequate resources going into the council for next year.
It'd be really nice if we had a good, I hate to say anybody to die, but somebody would leave the town hall some money because they don't need it anymore. Not to die, but they just don't need it anymore.
Tomorrow we'll do. Oh, by the way, sorry, we may be eligible to grant. Rob will double check. Just he did mention we may get some grants for the roof, so we'll check on that as well.
Brilliant, fantastic.
But don't let it hold up any work, though.
Oh no.
Sometimes these things, when you apply for a grant, it costs you twice as much. So it's a bit of a problem.
No, we won't do that.
Okay, very good. So we'll skip on that, and then we'll bring that to the rest of that to attention in our next meeting.
Yes.
Can we do that? Excellent.
Yeah.
Energy supplier.
Yes, two reasons. The first one is, as you can see from the report, we're out of contract.
Sorry, has John got his hand up there? John, Mr. Palmer, Councillor Palmer. Sorry, you're on mute.
Hello?
Gareth?
Hello, speak.
Yes.
I'm not muted on here.
No.
We can now hear you.
Good. And my apologies, it took me a long time to get in, but having come here, and obviously I've missed all of this, the discussion that's gone on so far. I am concerned about watering the new flowers.
We haven't.
As an asset, is it something we can discuss here?
Well, it's not our asset, is it?
Well, it's we've got summer planting and watering. It's about adding it on to that.
Well, we just discussed that this list is somewhat prejudiced now because we've got to find probably £40,000 to repair the roof.
Okay.
As a matter of urgency. If you wanted to find money, you would have to decide not to do something else, like perhaps not do the winter planting of our planters.
Well,
to save money there or not. I mean, obviously we can't magic money out of nowhere.
I appreciate that. Yes.
It would have to. You would have to agree what you're going to reduce to do that work.
I was going to suggest that we got volunteers to do the winter planting.
That's a good suggestion. Actually, I was going to bring this up, but thank you for bringing it up, John. The planters, there was an email came last night, so I don't know how many people saw it, for a volunteer to water all the planters.
Not all of the planters, I don't think.
No.
I think it's the two planters alongside.
No, he mentioned going down the street.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, that's the way I read it.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, coming back on that point as well, because we've got to save money, obviously. What works did we pay him for last year that he didn't carry out?
Sorry, who?
The contractor who waters them.
well, that's irrelevant because it was a contract, so we have to pay him whether the works were done or not. It wasn't his fault that you know, it was a contractual obligation. We had to pay. He still did the cutting of the grass and the other works, and he did do the watering of the plants after they went in. It was largely down to the fact that Derwent College are a supplier of the plants, and obviously around the time of April, May, we had strict lockdown, so nobody could plant the plants. And then what he was diverted to was making sure, as he has been, we still water the trees on the centenary square. There's still the works at Pennerbryn Cemetery, cutting and grass cutting and hedge cutting. So yes, we may have overpaid, but you know, it's there's no clause in the contract to say we can't pay you if we fail on our side, unfortunately.
Okay, Councillor Haddy.
There was a further contraction because it was included in the contract, but there's no longer any baskets on the bridge that need watering. If we come to a strict point where the contractor's not going to give us a little bit of slack on this matter, then I suggest, John, that either we go to volunteers or we forget it, because the price quoted of 2,000 would be unreasonable in comparison with what's there. So,
but
Councillor Mile.
Well, okay, so they are planters, right? And we have got, John has put some begonias in there, but they are really, at the end of the day, they are lane dividers. They are better than what was there before. I mean, it would be nice if they had flowers in them. I agree, but not for £2,000 worth of watering. So I would be happy to go along with the volunteering bit. All we would need would be I'd be happy to go along early in the morning and do a little bit of watering. But all we need is something to roll down the street and pump into the planters. But again, I would be happy for there to be no plants in there. Just basically, they are a lane divider, and they are better than what was there previously as a lane divider. £2,000 is a lot for this council too, and it was never the intention of Denbighshire to plant them up and look after them. They were just there as dividers.
I say that in defence, it's about £37.50 a session per person, and obviously, as I said in the email last year, he went early morning so he could park up in the parking bays. Now, of course, if you park up, you're obstructing the road, so he has to have that second operative to, even at that time in the morning, ensure traffic movement. So that's the problem. He's doubled up in his staff, which he's not charging us on the big contract for hours. But, that's the point. He has got 2 members of staff there doing what was a one-man job last week.
Our previous contractor used to water between 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning, and the traffic isn't a problem at that hour.
Well, he's there 4:30 in the morning. But, you only need...
There is no problem.
You need somebody to plough into the back of the Bowser, and, we know it.
Should we make a decision on this about the extra to the contract? Should we have a proposal?
I propose that we don't do it.
I second that proposal.
Yeah.
But can we also sort of see if we can get any volunteers to do something, which was, as Councillor Palmer suggested earlier?
Is it worth approaching the shops who the planters are in front of, so that if each individual shop did 1 planter or something, 2 planters, would that work?
A couple of kettles of water a day, probably all right.
That could work, yes.
Yeah.
A bucketful would do it.
Sean.
Sorry?
I was just a lot of people have said they were very pleased to see them, and I would hate to see them disappear.
Oh no, I agree with you, John.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you totally. But,
So
but not £2,000 worth.
Oh, definitely not. No, I appreciate that.
I believe they've been having some supplementary watering as well from urination. I was told.
Let's not go there.
No.
Well, hopefully that means they'll flower nicely with all that nitrogen.
Sorry, can I just go back? There was a proposed and seconded.
That we don't go ahead with the extra on the contract.
Everybody's happy with that? Voted for
Yep.
that? Okay.
Yeah.
Right, sorry. Energy supplies was the next one. As I say, a couple of reasons. A, climate emergency. We declared a climate emergency, and as a consequence of that, in the climate action plan, we have committed to move into green energy. Learned a lot about green energy the last few months. As the report says, we've got to be careful of greenwashing, which is these REGO certificates, where the sort of initial supplier has a certificate for producing green energy, and then you can trade those certificates. So you could end up with what is allegedly green energy, which is not green energy at all. It's energy that's been generated by other means, and the certificates cover it. So therefore, cutting a long story short, when you eliminate those companies that attest to be green when they're not, you're left with ecotricity, minus a good energy and green energy, which are 100% green on the electricity side. And then, as I'll be trying to remind myself how they do it, they do carbon offsetting and things in terms of the biogas they get. So a lot of it is biogas as opposed to natural gas. And then they do offsetting and themes in parts of the world. And they try and achieve at least up to 10% of this kind of gas to class it as green. On the one hand, I've had several, as I said, the other reason then is that Centenary Square contract finished in April, because we have obviously, it was May, June when we opened it. So we're now on a standard tariff. There was a desire to get away from that. And then the other tariffs change in September. So we're getting close to the point where we need to talk about transfer. I have quite a few people contacting me, various brokers, all promising to come up, and then obviously they've not been able to do it because of the REGO certificate. So I've been out myself. Ecotricity at the moment are not taking new energy companies. I think there's been quite a surge during lockdown, people moving. So we're left with good energy and green energy. And I've done an assessment based on consumption, not last year but the year before, because obviously last year was a bit of a no-no. And I've also put the current supplies at the bottom. And as you can see, the cheapest option for us would be a 24-month supply with good energy, with gas and electricity. Marginally below what we're doing now, bearing in mind that Centenary Square is on a higher tariff, but as you can see, they're not far off the other tariffs with our current supplier, British Gas. So the proposition is that you agree to do a 24-month fixed energy contract with good energy, and that we move immediately the Centenary Square to that provider, and then get them to make the arrangements to transfer the rest across on the due date in September. There is one other issue. It's not complicated, but I'll try and explain it as best I can. When we had this old square, we had a meter box on that square to supply, which had an MPAN number on it. That MPAN number was used for our unmetered supply for the Christmas decorations that were on county council lampposts. A lot now is supplied from the square, the Barclays and the town hall, various places, but the bridge and then the facilities around Market Street, Oak Street, Castle Street, and the one up by the chapel are obviously connected to the lighting columns. We have been chased by the county, and in fairness, they've not chased us too much, but they're now asking us to pay for that consumption. which we can't do because we didn't have an MPAN number anymore because we've dug up the town square and built a new meter there. Now we have a new MPAN number, and that MPAN number would also have to be given to Good Energy for them to take that account, and then we will have to then be charged for consumption over the last year for electrical. It's not a lot; it's about £90 a year, but we have that budgeted. But just to let you know, that's something else we'll be adding as a unmetered supply. So if you're happy, I will arrange to do those arrangements and get everything transferred.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Mile. Sorry, Sean.
I was just going to say, I think it's the right thing to do, and I'm very happy to propose it.
Sean?
Is there any way that we can put some solar panels somewhere? I know there's a cost, but you can possibly get a grant for it. Is this something that we should be looking into?
Can we cover the town hall roof in them? Stop the leak.
Nice one.
Well, if we're doing it at the same time, I know it's obviously heritage. I mean, is there somewhere out of sight that still gets good light that we can consider?
Well, it'd be all the south-facing slopes. It's not unheard of. We could possibly do that, but I think at the moment we'll get the roof repaired and then investigate.
Like the morgue roof. I mean, how much sun does that get? That could be, if it gets enough sun.
I think we'd have to get a professional survey to see how much. But certainly can't rule it out. Councillor Haddy.
I think £90 a year is a lot cheaper to pay out, to be honest. Of the 4 meters that you've got listed for the town hall, are any of those rechargeable?
Yes, yeah. One is obviously Wingett's, so that would be immediately recharged and charged back in.
Jolly good. So we've had a proposal from Mel. Second.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All in favour?
Yeah.
Thanking you.
The next,
just as a matter of interest, I did have a look at Octopus Energy as well, which are fully green. They're about the same price. They're all about the same, in the same ballpark, aren't they, Gary?
Yeah, I don't think they do business yet, unfortunately.
Okay.
Advertising boards. We've had a request from a local business, which is some distance from the town hall, shall I say. Have 2 portable signs, one outside Market Street and one they've been putting on the fence to Wingett's. As I said, I'm not sure, whether Wingett's gave permission. I haven't checked them because they're not in the office as much now to catch them. But in any event, they wouldn't have had the authority to give that permission. That now has been masked by the big bin, the new big bins we've got. And the company is asking whether they'd be allowed to mount an A board under our existing information board. The problem is, as you know, we've endorsed the temporary and authorised signs on the highway policy of the county council. And my concern is if we allow, there's already quite a lot of stuff which I'm trying to address with our tenants. I sell ice cream. I also sell ice cream. I sell sandwiches. I also sell sandwiches. And seating. So I think another A board would just make it even worse. And I also think it could set a precedent. I don't know how we'd stop anybody else asking the same thing. And none of these are particularly close to any of the businesses that are asking.
Councillor Haddy.
I propose that we don't permit the display of non-tenanted A boards on our property, either outside the temple or on Centenary Square.
Councillor Mile.
I heard Sean seconding it, which is fine by me. The reason I put my hand up was because I've spoken to the chap, because I've been walking around town with him, looking at other sites, and he understands he's not going to get permission. I told him he's unlikely to get permission tonight, even though that was probably predetermining it. But you know, he is aware of the problems of him having this in that position. As Gareth said, it's going to open up a whole nest of vipers.
Councillor Palmer?
I was just asking, is this one the one that's connected, tied onto the railing?
Yes.
Right.
Well, it's the only one that's there.
Yes, right.
Without identifying the business, because that wouldn't be fair.
I thought it might interfere with our historic building or whatever it is.
Well, as I said earlier, it shouldn't really be there. We've not given permission. Whether it's inferred that that is Wingert's building, so they've had word and they said, yeah, stick it on the fence. Shouldn't be there anyway.
It's been proposed and seconded, hasn't it? And everybody, all in favour? Thank you. Doesn't go ahead.
Just one small thing about this, Paul. I mentioned it at the.
Can you lean forward, John?
Sorry, yes. I mentioned at the meeting this afternoon that we used to have sponsored banners along on the street on the light post down the street in Downcastle Street, and I know this particular organisation had sponsored one of those to go up there. So whether those have just disappeared or not, I don't know. But if anybody knows where they are, it'd be quite.
I think David Davis should have known. He didn't say anything this afternoon.
Okay.
I thought he would have known, or Ian Leben.
Right.
I thought they were damaged. That's why they came down.
They were wind damaged. They were taken down in October October 2019, isn't it? 2019 October they were taken down, and a lot of them were damaged.
Okay.
But there's also a yearly cost or something, isn't there, involved?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it seems to be a moot point, John.
Yeah.
A moot point. Is it worth looking into whether we get any revenue from them, or does all the revenue go to DCC?
Well, originally the Chamber of Trade had them done, and
right.
Whether they put them up or not, I can't. They did originally, but I can't remember what happened after. I don't know what happened after that. But it's I don't want to spend time on it.
No.
I mean, personally, I think it's just more clutter.
Yeah.
Aren't we reducing the number of street signs and things?
To make people more aware, I quite agree, Sean. Okay, the fees and charges. Gareth.
Yes, Chairman. In line with the work we did on the budget, the report says we increased everything in line with inflation. We did a bit of a catch-up with this back in 2019. So rather than fall behind again, this is just a slight adjustment of the fees. There is a bit of science behind it. Oh, I got to try and remember how I do it now. So we start with the commercial rate, and then private parties, functions, sole traders is a £25 reduction on that. And then the community charity not-profit is a 50% reduction on the full commercial rate.
Yeah.
And then I think the daily hourly rate is 10% more than 8 into the day rate, 8 hours, and the evening hourly rate I think is 20%. So obviously it's cheaper to do a half day than the hours. And then the Saturday thing is just a standard amount for morning, afternoon, and evening sessions if people are using it. That doesn't apply to professional, just to the charity sector, to allow them to use the facilities without having to pay a full rate for hosting for afternoon, evening, or morning.
Just one thing I've never really understood. There's the charge stage extension bar AV equipment fee per day per space occupied. Is that included in £170?
No, the rationale for that was that we were getting a lot of events booking, obviously, and they're like 2 weeks prior, 10 days, 2 weeks prior. The lighting deck ended up at the back of the facility. You had an orchestra and a stage extension, and we still had dance classes running.
Yes, okay, I appreciate it.
So the idea was to make them put that in as late as possible, which I think has worked.
So for instance, if the Fringe come in and book it for a week, and we let Val, out of the kindness of our heart, take his dance class there because he can't do it normally. We just don't charge him for it, but there's no extra charge to it for that.
Yeah, but
it's a good thing I just wanted to check on, really.
It's just to dissuade people from setting him up too soon. That was rash behind that.
That's good. So, any other questions on the charges?
I have a question in terms of we want to encourage people to use it this year, and potentially people won't be able to put as many people in it. So is it the right year to be increasing it? I completely understand we don't want to get out of step again. It's just a balance.
So for the majority of users, it'd be £10 extra, wouldn't it, on daily, and £5 for an evening performance. You know,
I don't think we need to worry too much, Sean, because at the moment I can't see the hall coming into economic function until next year. Because realistically, neither the operatic nor the 20 club would be able to put on a production and make it economically viable until we can go back to full numbers again. And the way things are going, it's not going to be this year. So I think if we allow ourselves to get too far out of step, we run into a bigger problem then, because there's a big shock horror with treasurers all over the place fainting at the prospect. But more importantly, I think that we still operate very good value for money, because if you compare us with the Pavilion and other venues around, it's still a good deal.
It is, and it's in town. With plenty of parking. So, do we have a proposal for the charges? Thank you.
I'll propose it.
And so seconded, Councillor Haddy, proposed Councillor Mile. All in favour? Thank you. Now we come to part B.
Yeah,
which so to do some stuff here.
If somebody could propose that we exclude the press and public and we move into part B, that's the first thing.
I propose that in view of the business before us, we move to part B.
Thank you, Councillor Haddy. Seconded.
Me.
Councillor Mile, thank you.
So I'll just have to remove Mr. R. Jones, if he doesn't mind, from the meeting. I'll do that.